This afternoon, the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission is serving warning to heads of public institutions, asking the institutions to carry out an internal audit on the payroll structure and remove from it all fraudulent payments. The commission is further warning banks that it will retrieve any fraudulent or unearned salaries that have been made through its channels. Let's hear from the Chief Executive for the Commission, Benjamin Atta, who's been speaking to us in an earlier interview.
For the workers of this country, we have a special group, that is the public sector workers. The 30% is the welcome news for all public sector workers, and the feedback that we're getting is positive. Of course, it's government's responsibility to cushion the worker. Even though we were not able to meet the full expectation of the public sector workers, I believe this will go a long way to ameliorate the challenges that workers face in this country, vis-a-vis the economic challenges that we face. But aside that, I must also admit that the percentage increase that we have given has a ripple effect on the private sector. And already some private sector organizations are receiving requests from their employees as to what they should do and what not to do. In simple language, they are also expectant that a similar courtesies will be extended to them. So we have some other institutions, they don't come to us, but of course, through data collection and collaboration, we're able to know what is also pertaining in the private sector. So for public sector, yes, it's good news, but for private sector, it is also more or less brewing into some agitations, and people are beginning to cite our examples that, look, for public sector workers, this has been done for them. Private sector workers need, similar courtesies because we all draw from the same market, and that principally is the argument.
Right. We'll talk about the private sector and what you intend to do on that score. But for the public sector, the labor unions were not enthused about the 30% threshold that you finally agreed on. The question is there room for improvement? Are you hoping that in the nearest future some more will be added? Oliver Twist, you can always ask.
I will not be able to stand here and preempt that because what we have given is not out of the blue. Basically, what we have is what we can afford to give. So we agreed. The wage fixing mechanism is through negotiation. But looking at government's ability to afford what we have promised, you will not be able to stand here and say that in the shortest possible time we are going to add or subtract. But it's our expectation that the state will be able to mobilize the necessary resources to meet that expectation. In the budget, we had put in to the maximum of 20%. So the 10 extra, which was not anticipated, we definitely must find the ways and means of cutting here, drawing from here and there to be able to patch up the difference. But it is our hope that at least it meets a minimal expectation. Of course, we have specific allowances that are, specific to institutions. So when you hear the base pay, it's basically for the entire public sector, especially for those who are on the single spine. But aside that, we have institution-specific allowances that are negotiated with the specific institutions, and that is ongoing. But I must use your medium to plead with public sector workers that we will have to manage our expectations, going forward, even with the institution-specific allowances. You must also understand the fact that you can pay what you have and what you can afford. But aside doing that, this year we are also keen in answering the question, what are we paying for? And when I say what are we paying for?
We're looking for efficiency.
Efficiency, productivity. So this year we're taking the necessary steps to make sure that institutions will set their targets, individuals will have their targets set, so that at the end of the year we will have a measurement period to know what each institution was able to achieve and what individuals are able to achieve. so that we'll be able to link the score to pay. So maybe for the first time, we should be able to achieve this in this country.
But as we speak, the opinion is divided as to what the root cause of this growing agitation on the labor front is. Some believe that we go way back to the base, the single spine salary structure. It's the bane of why we're seeing what we're seeing on the labor front, and so there's a need for us to review it. I recall that came up when you met at the Kwo summit. These were some of the issues that came up. What's going to happen to, for instance, the single spine salary structure?
Well, I don't know if you are privy to that information. True to government's commitment, the National Tripartite Committee set up a committee made up of government team, reps from employers association, and then organized labor. And we've gone very far with the review process. So the report is yet to be delivered to the sector minister and hopefully forwarded to cabinet. And when the decision is made, I'm sure it will be back for either further consultation or for implementation. So true to our commitment, some activities have been undertaken. So we are waiting the report.
What timelines are you working with?
We are not. I'm a member of the committee, and the committee is under the auspices of National Tripartite Committee, chaired by the sector minister. So I will not be able to give you such commitment because I'm only a member of the committee. But I can say that there is a commitment on the part of all the parties to actually get the single spine pay policy review, because being the implementers, we also see one or two challenges that we need to address, which we have laid before the committee. So it's one thing that I think we are also capable of doing. Referring to that communique,
yes.
In that same communique, we agreed that fair wages should take steps and government should take steps to ensure that pay is linked to productivity. And that is the language we have now. So we want to be sure that that leg of our agreement is equally, implemented.
How do you intend to measure that efficiency in the public sector? Many say it's a task that you may not be able to complete
for us,
in the shortest possible time.
For us, our target is not the efficiency. The original mandate for supervising the public sector entities is with Public Services Commission. Where we come in is to advise government on performance management indicators and to be able to link pay to productivity. But going straight to productivity could be problematic because you have to really sit down, develop indices, the culture of the people. You must make sure people are sensitized, people have learned how to go about it and the rest. But as for performance management measurement, it's already in the system. That has been piloted for quite some time. So what we're going to do is basically to support Public Services Commission to oversee that activity. And then when you are measured, the score will be given to us. And then we will be guided by the score. Because there's a pay structure that you need to move on. So as you move on the pay structure, I don't want to be very technical. As you move on the pay structure, we want to have your coordinates, your location. And we are saying that your location on the pay structure, apart from on the vertical, which is by promotion and grade, and on the horizontal, it has to be informed by your performance. And we all agree to that. So we need to pilot it, we need to sensitize, we need to train where it's necessary to train. You can't just lob this over people overnight.
You're taking away the cost of living allowances as the base pay takes effect. Some say you should have kept it, looking at the level of inflation on the market and a lot of economic developments. So why are you taking that away? Are you bringing something?
No, I like your
smile.
I like your smile because your own smile speaks to the justification of taking it. But the term here is not that we are taking it away. We agreed, organized labor and the employer agreed that it will be implemented over a 6-month period from July to December. So we have only respected the agreement that we have had. We have not taken anything away. We agree that from July to December, whilst we wait to fix the base pay issues, that will persist to cushion the people. So once the base pay, the father has come home, the others must give way, and that is what has happened. So there was no question as to whether it can be taken away or not be taken away. It's by agreement that it has expired. Basically, that is what has happened.
The new year is here, 2023, and you have a lot on your table. For instance, the teacher unions are asking for their professional development allowance, a lot of concerns coming to your table. How do you intend to deal with some of these concerns? I mean, starting off.
Okay. So it's not the teacher unions who are asking for the professional development allowance. It's the non-teaching staff.
Non-teaching staff. Okay.
It's the non-teaching. It's just for the sake of our viewers. Yes. It's the non-teaching staff. If you look at some of these demands, not speaking specifically to what you have put on the table, if you want to look at all these demands and you want to look at what we have to do this year on our plate, you realize that we have a lot to do, because that is only one union that we need to deal with. There are several other unions that have collective bargaining certificates that we also have to, deal with them. Currently, as we speak, we have had the first meeting with the Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, preparing towards negotiating their condition of service. The teacher unions, the pre-tertiary teacher unions, have served notice already. Ghana Medical Association has also served notice already, and a number of them have equally served notice that this year there is a need to engage. But aside what us for, we also have other mandates that we haven't exercised too well in times past, that this year we want to also focus on that. And that has to do with payroll monitoring. We want to be sure that this year all public sector institutions that are receiving their pay directly or indirectly from government subvention will take first steps to sanitize their payroll. And that is to say,
you want to remove the ghosts?
Yes, we want to make sure that the ghost names belong to the cemetery on the payroll. The payroll has two chambers, where the living must be and where the... is that through administrative errors and the rest are not benefiting. Through the payroll monitoring, we want to ensure that they are benefiting. There are others who are not deserving of certain allowances that they enjoy. And I want to give you a key example. It is possible that you are being given a vehicle maintenance allowance. Possibly you have sold the vehicle to another person. You no longer own the vehicle, and yet that stays on our books. So we want to be sure that we'll sanitize the system. But let me take this opportunity to appeal to heads of all public sector institutions that even before fair wages comes to you, try as much as possible to sanitize your payroll, because it's of cost to the state. Already we have people who are working actively who might deserve better pay. So if we're able to save the one that we are giving to those who are not working, and we share it for those who are working hard, it will serve as a motivation for them to give up their best. So we want to be sure that those working and deserve better will also have the better pay that they always deserve, and not those who are not working but are enjoying, from public sector pay. So we want to be able to do that. There are people who are dead and might be staying on the payroll. Some people might have even abandoned posts, and for a couple of months they will still persist on the payroll. Apart from that, you have people who have resigned that for a number of months might still be on the payroll. Let me give you a typical example. If a teacher in, say, Nanton resigns, like any other district, that teacher must send the resignation letter to the district office. The district director or officer in charge would take some steps and forward it to the region. And possibly by the time that letter travels all the way to the headquarters, a month or two would have passed. And that individual for that 1 month or two will be taking pay. Because if you are not sure, you can't also take away the pay of people. So you must be very sure. So within this transition period, you realize that somebody will be taking pay. You have some people who might be dead, but who has reported it immediately, who has shown evidence, and for 1 month, at least that individual still is on the payroll. And when you release that pay, it becomes very difficult to take it back. So we want to be sure that the system is sanitized. And those of us who are also working, we must also justify why we are being paid. So the payroll monitoring aspect is there, and then the performance management monitoring and making sure that linking pay to performance is also active, is also there. So we want to ensure that at least we will do our best from the point of view of fair wages to ensure that the public sector is becoming, performance driven. Okay.
And be sure to find that conversation with the CEO of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, Benjamin Arthur, on all of our social media outlets and also at myjoyonline.com. But it's time now.